Hi again, and welcome to another special edition of Litter Media Live. Today we're talking about a proposed military museum for the city of Chillicothe. And we have with us guests Lieutenant Colonel retired Bob Leach, as well as Melody Lapczynski, Hatfield. And we're going to talk about what they have presented, and cross your fingers, folks, that we get something permanent to honor our military here in Chillicothe, Ohio's first capital, and of course, doggone it, the site of Camp Sherman. It all seems to make sense, doesn't it? That's all coming up in just a moment, right after this from Hometown Motors Incorporated.
As a professional race car driver, I live for speed, power, and performance, on and off the track. That's why I use the Dixie Chopper, the world's fastest lawnmower. Race into your local dealership today and test drive a new Dixie Chopper.
We're using a prop for the first time today. First of all, we want to say hi to Bob and to Melody. Thank you for coming in to talk about this project.
Honor to be here.
Thank you for having us.
You provided us with a visual for where this will take place, and many folks remember where Veterans Park is, where all the monuments are there on Yoctanju Parkway. This is what city building right now?
It's the water building, right? Water services building right now.
Okay, so the water services building is where we're going to want to have this building put into place. So lean up to that microphone and tell us a little bit more about the campaign and where it's all started here.
All right, well, actually, I'll start with something that's very closely related to the Chillicothe Ross Military Tribute Museum, and that is the next monument that's going to go into the Veterans Memorial Park. Anybody that's driven by that on Yoctanju Boulevard has seen the World War II monument that's the centerpiece of the park and knows that in addition, there's a monument to the Korean War and to the Vietnam War. All of those have the names of the people from Ross County that lost their lives in those wars, a total of 321 names between those monuments. Additionally, there are smaller monuments to prisoners of war missing in action, Purple Heart recipients, the Medal of Honor recipients from Chillicothe and Ross County. And the veterans community is very proud to be working on the initiative to put in the Global War on Terrorism Monument. Now, that's separate from the museum that we'll be talking about because that's going to happen sooner, probably within the next year. Of course, the monument will honor everybody from the local area who participated in the Global War on Terrorism. They used September 11th, 2001 as the start date of that conflict, and August 30th, the last flight out of Afghanistan, as being the end date for that.
Now, we have a graphic here that we want to share with as well.
Okay, so we do have a graphic of this proposed monument. Mm-hmm. There are 4 local Ross County men who lost their lives in the Global War on Terrorism: Gavin Colburn, Aaron Reed, Brad Clemens, and Josh Geyer. Those 4 names will be listed on the monument. It will have what we call the Soldier's Cross, which is the boots, the rifle, and the helmet. That will be a stone representation or metal representation on top of the monument, and a bench nearby. That monument will be located in the south end of the Veterans Memorial Park and actually closest to the museum that we'll be talking about today. In the next few months, anybody who wishes to contribute to this initiative to have this monument, there are brochures available, and of course our Veterans Service Office on Western Avenue is overseeing those donations that go to the Ross County Veterans Council. And there will be plenty of opportunity for people to make donations to this endeavor in the near future. So that's just something we want to highlight because it's the perfect segue into discussion about the Chillicothe Ross Military Tribute Museum.
Yeah. And you made a presentation recently to Chillicothe City Council.
I did.
About this. Catch us up to date on how that all came about and what you did share with council.
How it came about, wow. Actually, my husband and I were sitting and talking one day about the Veterans Park, and we had driven by it, and the water building is there. And he's going to kill me for saying this, but my husband looked at me and he said, you know, that building would make such a good museum. And he should not have said that to me.
Because you're the project lead.
So, yeah. And so We started talking to the veterans organizations, and it's just grown from there. I've got to say, in case you don't know, the park is between Veterans Parkway, and it's between that and Park Street. The address of the building is 151. When you turn on Park Street from Water, it hits the first jog, and you're looking straight ahead at a red brick building. That is the current Water building. They still have people in there. The plan is to have people move out of that facility and move into the old Pepsi building on 7th Street at some point in time. There's a lot of work that needs to happen for that to actually happen. Plus, they sustained some wind damage in a storm this past winter, so everything's kind of in a state of flux, but they're working on it. So,
if I can, just a quick correction, I think you might have misspoken by saying Veterans Parkway. That's on the
or
other
Yaktanji Parkway.
Yaktanji
I'm
Parkway.
sorry.
Just
Yes,
wanted to make
I'm
sure
sorry.
for someone watching and saying, "Wait a second."
Yeah,
we want to make
Veterans
sure.
Memorial Park is
So
on
Park
each side.
Street
Yes,
and
I'm sorry.
Yaktanji Parkway.
Yep, I am.
And I'll add that the thing that this is going to really contribute to the Veterans Memorial Park is this Water building has a large parking lot in itself. And one of the criticisms that we've received for several years about the Veterans Memorial Park is it's very difficult to find a parking place to visit that. You can either go on to Park Street and maybe park there, or a small area, but there will be a dedicated parking lot that people could park in and visit the Memorial Park if this all comes to pass.
And I know we've experienced that not only during the Memorial Day weekend for the activities there, but it's just on a regular basis. And when you did the Purple Heart Memorial dedication, it was a struggle for some people to find a place to park.
Well, people parked across the street, and then they walked across, which isn't the safest thing to do when you're talking about
Precisely.
Yaktanji Parkway.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep me straight. Okay, so in the meantime, I did go to City Council actually it's been about 5-6 weeks ago. Actually, I'm planning on going this Monday night, and Jan Corzine is going to be attending with me so we can provide an update to the City Council. So we will be bringing them up to date on what our plans are. I do want to say very clearly, at this point in time, we have not been given approval for that building, but we're working towards that because I know I'm prejudiced in this regard, but when you look at it, I can't imagine anything else in that building that would make the sense that having a military museum would have. So to me, it's a foregone conclusion, and my heart will be broken if we don't get it. But we're working on it, and what we would like to do is get a lease similar to what they did for the pump house. It would be a long-term lease, and we would be responsible for renovating it and everything that goes attached to that.
And I'd like to add to that what this can provide for the Veterans Memorial Park. It's easy to see all of the names on the various monuments, the 206 names on the World War II monument, 25 on the Korean War monument, 23 on the Vietnam War monument. But that's just a name. Maybe you'll see the date that they were killed, maybe where. In this museum, it would be possible for a person to read the entire story and see the entire story on placards. Just as an example, you can see the name Joseph Hoffman on the World War II memorial, but without a display in the museum, you would not know that he was the first Ross County person killed. It was at Pearl Harbor. You would not know the whole story of the USS Oklahoma that we explained on an earlier podcast before his funeral, that he was not identified until the last 10 years or so, and his funeral was conducted, and additionally that he just lived down the street from where this park and where the museum will be, and frequently walked by there on his way to his job downtown or his music lessons that he took downtown. So this museum in that location will really be a benefit to anybody who's looking at the sacrifices that Chillicothe and Ross County have made in the various wars.
And with today's technology, you may have video presentations and that.
We were thinking about making it interactive, like a QR code,
Right.
so that if you scan it, you would be able to get the stories of these people, the history of them. So, but we are getting ahead of ourselves for a little bit because I need to tell you that the steps that we have taken is that we have developed a board to oversee this. It consists of myself, Bob Leach, Jan Corzine, Bob Barnhart, Mike Ader, Greg Miles, and Jonna Pulver. We have a name for it. We were just calling it the museum for a while, and we now have established the Chillicothe Ross Military Tribute Museum, which seems to be very, very fitting for the cause that we're using it for. I've had a couple of conversations with Tom Spetnagel Sr., and he's going to walk us through the landmine that is a 501c3.
Right.
That can be intimidating. And what's really cool, with your new person that you've hired on board, just being a recent college graduate, we hired a college graduate to do some drawings for us. He's an architectural student, and he has done some really amazing drawings for us of what we envision that the museum itself will look like.
Right.
So we've been working on that, which then takes us to what we want the museum to be, not just what it looks like, but what we want it to be. We want it to be interactive with the Veterans Memorial Park, like Bob said. We want it to be able to tie in to both the names that are on those monuments, but in addition to that, historical data about the wars that the country has been involved in. We want to display artifacts, pictures, things of that nature from different times that our country has been at war outside of the United States. Also, it would be just really, really cool if we could get some large items, because the way the building is set up now, if we continue to keep that setup, on the end, there are a couple of garage bays, and it would be really cool if we could get some large items from the military, like a tank or a Jeep or a cannon, something like that, that even little kids would come to, and they would see that, and they would be able to climb into it or climb onto it. Something that will be more interactive for all ages of people.
Right.
And speaking of all ages, we also want it to be an educational tool for the students. It would be some place that you would be able to have student groups come and explore and learn the history that isn't always out there for kids to look. And it wouldn't be hands-on like it would be here. So it would be a really useful educational tool.
And in walking distance of three major Chillicothe
Yeah,
schools. We got
absolutely.
Chillicothe High School, the middle school right there at the high school, and then the intermediate and the primary, just within a few blocks.
Yep.
Which, educationally speaking, it's very close to your heart.
Indeed.
Not only had you been in the military, but also as a teacher. You understand what it's like to try and get kids on a field trip or to see something special. And if it's in your right backyard, you know, this is a perfect classroom setting.
What we always didn't like about field trips, say, to Columbus, was you had to budget in and lose 1 hour of instruction time for the bus ride on the way up and on the way back. So, yes, we would not have that being in walking distance of those particular schools. But we would think that other schools from the county may even come into this, once it's fully functional.
I know you have a lot of movers and shakers you need to talk to make this happen, but those who are hearing about it, what has been their reaction?
It's been wonderful, actually. We've had a lot of positive remarks from a lot of different people, and it's actually been kind of overwhelming. I'll take the Historical Society as an example. I had talked to Tom Kuhn, the previous director, and I didn't know how a new director coming in would feel about this. And I met with Darren Baker, and he thought it was just a wonderful idea, because in our minds, when we think about this as being a complementary avenue for people that are interested in history, particularly the military, but people that are interested in history in general, and it would be a logical tie-in with the Historical Society, Adena Mansion and Gardens, the Mace House, the Railroad Museum, the Lucy Webb Hayes Heritage Center, and the Hopewell National Historical Park. And with the UNESCO World designation, I mean, it's even more of a draw to bring people into Chillicothe. It just gives one more venue for people to see what Chillicothe is all about. But to backtrack on that, Darren was absolutely wonderful at the Historical Society and even offered support to help us navigate this process with things that we hadn't even considered yet, like how are we going to insure it and things of that nature. So very, very supportive. We've had a lot of people that have expressed a sincere desire to help where they can while not being on the board. So it's been an overwhelmingly good response.
We are within 5 years of the, probably 7 years now of the centennial for Camp Sherman, coming off that celebration. Next year, the VA will be celebrating its 100th birthday. So,
and then I just want to add, we look forward to this. We've got the semi-quincentennial, the 250th birthday of the United States in 2026. And so we want to tie all of these things together.
Yeah, and the addition of this will be a companion extension to all the other things that we have to tell the story of Chillicothe.
Right, exactly. If somebody really gets interested in Camp Sherman because they start out at this Chillicothe Ross Military Tribute Museum, they can then go to the Mace House and learn more about that, or to the Camp Sherman room in the Ross County Historical Society. Or if they become interested in the fact that so many of our soldiers left Chillicothe on the railroad to go off to war, they'd have the Caboose Museum. And if they find themselves becoming interested in the early Indian Wars, they might end up at Adena Mansion, where Tecumseh's tomahawk that he gave to Thomas Worthington is on display. So truly, these are all very connected, and I don't see a turf war. I see cooperation and referrals coming from all museums to the others.
Yeah.
And I didn't mention, of course, Lucy Webb Hayes was married to Rutherford B. Hayes, that was not only the commander-in-chief of the United States Army for a while, but was a colonel during the Civil War, and famous in his own right, and had a son who was one of our Medal of Honor winners from Ross County.
Yeah. Many reasons to celebrate our military.
Oh, absolutely.
In its history.
Absolutely.
Yeah. For folks who want to assist with the board, or maybe make monetary contributions to, are we to the point yet? Okay, so we got to get that 501c3
We need to get the 501c3 established, and then we will be looking for donations. In just preliminary searches, nothing really in depth yet, we've identified over 20 different grant sources as a funding agent that we would be eligible for at both the local, state, and federal level. We also are, in the back of our minds, kicking around the possibility of endowments that we could have that would provide a somewhat steady flow of income, although we are going to be charging admission because it will be a business. So there would be an admission fee unless you're a veteran, and we're going to have a gift shop, things like that inside to make money. But we're looking like we're going to be good financially, I think, at least through the creation of the museum, and we would be eligible for continued funding beyond that. And as I said, both at an individual level and with different organizations in Chillicothe.
Dan, the other thing I want to say, it's too early to talk about yet, but we've had people approach us and they want to donate Grandpa's uniform to the museum. We're not at the point where we can entertain or discuss that. But eventually, we do see this museum could become a repository for things like that, and we hope to. But at this
those
point,
pieces are necessary.
Oh, they absolutely are.
But like you say, who wants the responsibility of storing that until
we got to build the cake before we put the icing on it.
Precisely.
Very good way to say it.
If someone wants to make a financial contribution to the monument you were leading off with here today, are you at the point where you can?
Yes, in fact we are. And if a contribution makes it to the Veterans Service Office that's in the county building on Western Avenue, it could be handed there or mailed there. That address is on Western Avenue, and of course, that would be how I would answer that question. Just give me a moment, and we'll answer that. So that address is the Veterans Service Office at 475 Western Avenue, Suite C here in Chillicothe.
Okay. Is there anything that we have missed you wanted to make sure we mention before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would like to just say one thing that might sound a little bit hokey, but I really firmly believe that our veterans don't get the recognition that they deserve. And this museum will be a way for us to honor our courageous military personnel, those who didn't come home from service and those that are living among us, because they don't always talk about their experiences, but you've got some really amazing people out there today that have done amazing things while they were serving our country. And we can't let people forget that, and we need to recognize that. So.
I've often thought on visits to the Air Force Museum in Dayton of the individuals who have served that you walk through with, or you see them talking to family members, telling the story. I was with my son there not long ago, and we were talking about the different planes he was involved with and all. There's a tie that when you have something at a point to go to, it brings us all together, and it opens you up.
Yeah,
it gets you that opportunity to talk about those things.
And, of course, the Ross County Veterans Honor Guard, who is actively involved every time a veteran passes away and the family requests a military uniform or a military service, and we provide that service to the family. Each one of the veterans that passes away is part of the story of the Ross County's contribution to the nation's military and the nation's heritage. So we are very pleased to be going in this direction with a military tribute museum to honor all of our military members and veterans.
Absolutely. And Bob is wearing his his Honor Guard uniform today. While you're here, let me ask you, are you still looking for volunteers to help and assist with
We always are,
Honor
and
Guard?
anybody who contacts either the Veterans Service Office or any of the veterans clubs here in Chillicothe will be given the right way to go with getting the information out. And we have had an increase in the number of members since the podcast that we did here, where we explained the mission of the Honor Guard and asked for volunteers. In fact, we got some people that joined because they had seen that.
Fantastic.
So
Happy to hear that.
appreciate that time.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for yours. I know there's no military service here, but
No, there isn't.
you're can we say Rosie Riveter? Driving in that fashion, I guess, in some fashion, to make this happen.
It's a fashion anyway.
She has done a lot for veterans in the area, and we appreciate your assistance there as well.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching also. We'll have additional information as things continue to grow with this, and this is the infancy stages, and we want to see it become a full-grown adult. So help us out if you could. Thanks for watching Litter Media Live.